So as you can likely tell, I am not in my regular filming spot, and that is because I'm in Chicago for the Democratic National Convention. Something that just weeks ago I was not going to do. I wasn't going to do the RNC or the DNC, and then we got 3 weeks of insane political news. And I figured, let's go out there. Let's see what happens. So I was able to get credentialed. I have access. We're going to be doing some interviews this week. Flew in on Sunday. Almost didn't make that flight because I had a motorbike accident the day prior. To which you might look at me and go, Phil, you don't seem like a guy that rides dirt bikes. And my response to that is, yeah, no, you're right. But luckily, given how stupid my crash was, the cut wasn't too deep. And so I'm here to see what pops off. And so since we're going to be talking about a lot of this stuff this week, it feels like the right place to start is to talk about the Democrats actually releasing an official party platform, because it just got released before the convention started. But, technically it still needs to be voted on at the DNC, but that'll just kind of be a rubber stamp procedure. But this entire plan, it's 90 pages, so that also means I'm not going to get into every little detail here. But the titles of the 9 chapters, they give you a good idea of what's on their mind. All right, we're talking about the economy, tax cuts, fighting rising prices, energy, gun crime, voting and civil rights, the border, international leadership, and also a section about some of the particular projects that they want to finish that Biden started. And that is a quirk of the platform, right? It was finalized by a committee back in July, days before he dropped out of the race. So of course, with that, they really wanted to hammer in his achievements and policies that he's taken a special interest in. And looking into the specifics a little bit more, you can see there's a big emphasis on prices for everyday Americans. The document is very critical of price gouging by industries like oil and pharma, which seems to feed perfectly into remarks Harris made this weekend about fighting price gouging on things like food. Also, in another angle of attack for this issue, the party wants to push for a $15 an hour minimum wage. The platform also really emphasizes home prices, with it on one hand claiming that more people own homes today than did before the pandemic, and we're seeing fewer foreclosures than at any time in decades. So there's a question about what data they're using, because foreclosures seem to have gone up 136% since 2021, according to the real estate firm Adam. Though notably that is still lower than pre-pandemic levels. But then on the other hand, it also highlights that more needs to be done, with the party saying it wants to cut red tape to help more home builders get federal financing, as well as proposing a $10,000 tax credit for first-time home buyers. So at the same time, you have Harris just announcing that she actually wants it to be over double that. It also wants to tackle housing for renters, with one of the proposed ways being limiting how much a corporate landlord can raise rents year over year. And so the plan would make it so that they can either cap rent increases at 5% per year or lose a big incentive they currently have. Also, another thing that'll probably resonate with a lot of voters are the proposed tax cuts, right, with these meant to target lower and middle income households, which is the vast majority of the country. And the chapter on this starts with a hedge fund manager or CEO should never pay a lower tax rate than a teacher or firefighter. A company with billions of dollars in profits should not pay $0 in taxes. It also goes on to say that trickle-down economics doesn't work and has never worked. So to that end, it highlights all the times the Democrats have tried to lower taxes only for Republicans to block them, such as when Republicans blocked the renewal of a pandemic-era child tax credit that saved about 40 million families up to $3,600 per child per year, or how they want to defund the IRS's free tax filing tool, which was successfully piloted this year. Well, that's saving a lot of people a ton on fees, cutting out annoying companies like TurboTax, which only exists because of lobbying against the IRS having its own system. Also, to offset the tax cuts for most Americans, the party wants larger tax burdens for the wealthiest Americans and corporations. Stuff like a minimum 25% tax rate on billionaires and an end on capital gains for millionaires so they pay the same rate on investment income as on wages. And there are a ton of other numbers to throw around here, but something that's been highlighted that really stood out was that corporations are seeing record margins, but their share of federal taxes has fallen below 10%, down from 30% in the 1950s. But also, none of that tax policy should be surprising, since it's like Democratic Policy 101. Paid leave also stood out, with the party wanting a program that would give Americans 12 weeks paid leave to deal with the birth of a child, to take care of an ill family member, or many other circumstances. It also noted that America is the world's only advanced economy not to guarantee paid leave, and saying that the vast majority of employers don't offer it, and nearly 3/4 of private sector employees don't have paid family leave through their jobs. And then the last thing on businesses is that the document goes really hard on blaming them for the huge increase in prices lately. Like, obviously inflation played a role, but the party is emphasizing that while profit margins continued to rise for companies, they also took the opportunity to hike up the prices. Also, other big policy pushes include shifting energy jobs away from things like coal and oil and towards clean energy, which has been a mission of the party for over a decade now. Education also has a huge segment dedicated to it, including the emphasis on making sure young kids have access to preschool. With that, then allowing parents to work more, and so the party sees it as a win-win. The Dems also really push that a post-secondary education is a major policy point. And notably they're not saying that you need to go to college, especially with the rising costs, but even going to a trade school would be sufficient to propel most people well into the middle class. And at the same time, it wants to lower the loan burden on professions like teachers, which are already severely underpaid. need. Now, with all that said, and while understanding I'm not hitting every single policy point, because again, 90 pages, one thing that the entire agenda was silent on was an arms embargo regarding Israel, with it just in general saying that it supports Israel while at the same time pushing for a ceasefire, which is probably not what the pro-Palestinian protesters out here at the DNC are going to want to see right now. Which on that note is going to be one of the things to keep our eyes peeled for, with reports saying that it's expected that there will be tens of thousands of protesters across at least 6 major protests. But for now, we're going to have to wait to see how today and just really this whole week is going to play out.